forget how to do this?
No. This guy.
Well, it's been golly, it's been a minute.
I know it has been a minute. Cool. Let me kick things off.
Sure.
What's up, y'all? It's Righteous Revolution Podcast. We got a guest with us today, Landon. I'm Adam. This is Trent. Hey,
You're fine.
I'm doing the intro.
Oh, okay, gosh, I didn't know you were gonna. Okay, sorry. Let's redo it.
Interrupts me again. I swear.
Okay, let's redo it.
No, we're not redoing it. This is
No.
live. We're going.
No, we're redoing it.
No, we're going. Keeping it.
What's up? I'm Trent.
What's up, y'all? So today we're going to be talking around alcohol and is it okay for Christians to drink? So, Trent, I'll kick it to you just to kind of kick off the topic.
Is it okay for Christians to drink?
I think you have to look at it as, is alcohol a sin? And I think alcohol itself is not a sin, but being a drunkard, as it states in the Bible, is a sin. Or if God's telling you not to drink and you do it anyways, that's disobedience, and that's a sin.
Or if it's Bud Light.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had to throw that in. So, for me, there's numerous occasions in the Bible where wine was partaken. And there's also, I think that we get confused about what kind of, because they had ceremonial wines, they had, different kinds of things. But I mean, wine was wine, different alcohol contents.
Yep.
Paul talked about it, about it being good for the gut and stuff like that. So on the premise of it, is alcohol a sin? No. To a degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, though, it is a complete, it's a complete severing of the Holy Spirit with me in my walk with God.
Mm-hmm.
So, could I partake and have a drink with a friend and it be an issue? No. Will I? No. Mm-hmm. And that is a personal decision for me that I've, talked with God about many times, and just said, I just feel like it's better that I don't. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's fair. What about you, Landon? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's not, alcohol itself is not a sin, besides Bud Light. But similar to what you said, for me, I have a chemical imbalance, Norm. So when I introduced alcohol into my life at any point, it was turned me into a completely different person. So I think, we can dive right into the point of like no return on alcohol. For a lot of people, somebody can go have a drink, not drink again for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
Have 2-3 drinks. With some people, myself, and I'm guessing you as well, there's no 1 or 2 drinks. It's not like
Go hard or go home.
yeah, and that
Drinks
going
mine.
hard is
Yeah.
and then everything after that fact all leads to sin. It's a dirty, dark path that I will never go down again. And but not everyone. So no, to answer your question, alcohol itself is not a sin. It's the person and how the person acts with alcohol and the things they do while drunk.
Yeah.
And it's like so normalized in today's society. Like, I was guilty of it in my past. Like, I felt like every event I was at, every thing I was doing on the weekend, like, revolved around alcohol. If I was going out to, a cookout, or if I was doing anything specific, like, there had to be alcohol there, in quote, for me, and the thought of, for me to have fun. And, a little bit, I'll talk about here in a little bit, but, like, God told me to stop drinking. Like, I wasn't addicted to alcohol. Like, I didn't have like a struggle with it. But God, clear as day, told me like, hey, that's something that I need to cut out of my life. And so I stopped. And it's like, I realized you don't need alcohol to have fun. Like, we do a bunch of stuff with our men's group, our young adults group, and like, we always have a blast and there's no alcohol involved. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's, that's a misconception as well in people's minds is that you have to have alcohol to have fun. And also I seen something the other day. It was like a non-alcoholic beer. He's like, oh, you can, you can drink it and not have to offend anybody, and but it doesn't have. And I'm like, what's the point? Like, why don't you drink water? You know what I mean? Like, why do you have to?
Give me a
That's just
Diet
extra
Coke.
carbs and calories.
Yeah,
right
like,
off that.
but I'm just like, I don't really understand what the point of that.
Yeah.
You know, with me though, I believe that it's spiritual as well. I believe it's a lot more spiritual than a lot of times we give it credit for.
Yeah.
And I believe that there can be demonic influences with alcohol.
Well, they call it spirits.
Yeah, I've always said that that you drive by the liquor store and it says wine and spirits, like
Spirits. Yeah. It's
yeah,
like,
you know,
what?
like,
What does that mean?
but to me though, and I'm not for all the people that's gonna just come at me. It's not. I'm not necessarily saying like it is the spirit, but I also say that like that's just like the enemy to throw it in your face and it to be right out front and be like, yeah, I mean, this is what it is.
Yeah.
But I used it, like so whenever whatever situation, in my life and stuff like that, it was a numbing agent, or
100%.
and it allows you to not have to deal with the realities of, or it allows you to think you're not having to deal with the realities in that moment. But all
That
it
just
is,
makes it 10 times
yeah,
worse.
all it is a
Yeah.
spiraling effect.
Yeah. Tool from the enemy.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah, it piles on once you something bad happens. You're like, all right, I'm just gonna go get smashed. I'm gonna get wasted, so I don't have to deal with that. Now the next day you're hungover. You still have to deal with the issue. Now you got to get up and go to work. If you're into fitness, it completely ruined all your gains. You probably ate like trash. It's a spiraling effect that it was a quick Band-Aid that you put on, and then when you pulled that Band-Aid off, it was infected. Yeah. Because it didn't actually fix anything. It just
Made it worse.
masked it for a second, and then it piled up and multiplied multiple things on top of it, which just makes it 2-3 times worse. But that's not back to your question. That's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I know people that can literally have one beer or one whiskey drink, not drink again for 2-3 months. Oh, it's my birthday. I'm gonna have 2 or 3 drinks. Don't drink again for a year, and they could do that on occasion. And that itself is not a sin. That they're hanging out. It's just like having some potato chips, or a coffee, because it's they don't do anything with that. It's when you overconsume and you take it to an overindulging stage.
Yeah. When you idolize it.
And you use it to mask those.
Well, you're using it for an excuse. Let's be real. Like for the people that are really having those issues, they allow the issues to become an excuse to drink, and not saying that the issues are invalid. Yeah, it just it makes it to where, well, I'm dealing with this, so I'm gonna turn to this,
good or bad.
Yeah,
I would have a great day at work. I'm like, babe, great day. Let's celebrate. I need a bottle of bourbon. Bad day. Oh, I had a horrible day. I need a bottle of bourbon. Yeah, you use it for it became an excuse for everything. Yeah. I would
becomes a habit.
Go on vacations. I'm like, all right, there has to be a distillery, or there has to be a brewery. I have to be able to bring a flask. There has to be alcohol involved at any point in time during this vacation, and it would ruin a vacation for the rest of my family because they're not surrounded around alcohol. But it was like, all right, we walked, cool. Y'all got to see these little shops, these gift shops. Now we got to go to the bar. I have to get a beer. I have to get a whiskey drink. Then you go walk for another 20, 30 minutes. Oh, let's find the next spot to get a beer. It became tiring. And that I mean, it goes on a much bigger path than that, but it was for any purpose, good purpose, bad purpose. It was an excuse. I need to have a drink. And I told myself that. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not drinking liquor anymore. I'm drinking beer. So it's good. Yeah. It's not as bad. There was all these lies that you would tell yourself to make it, oh, it's okay. Oh, I'm only going to drink on the weekends. And then Saturday and Sunday become Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
3 months later.
And then it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it's back to Monday through Sunday. You're drinking a 12-pack every night.
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah. Do y'all experience it? So like I do now at work. So like I'm open about it that, hey, I don't drink alcohol anymore. Which is funny because like I was, I work with a bunch of guys that I've always drank around and stuff like that at work events and all that. But I'll go to these conferences and like I said, I'll order a crispy DC, good old Diet Coke, and they'll be like, why aren't you drinking? Let me get you a shot. Let me get you a beer. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need it. And I almost feel like targeted in a sense for like not drinking sometimes, like feel like called out. It doesn't bother me. Like at first it was uncomfortable, you know, because like I had been around people in the past that like didn't drink, and I was like, okay, that's weird. But now I'm that guy, you know.
Right.
Like I mean, obviously you guys don't drink. Like, have you ever felt like that in those circumstances?
Mine was kind of opposite, actually, with a good, and I know like corporate America, so it's kind of funny. Like with corporate America, it's like they all drink.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like it's a social type status or something. I'm not real sure. But so the guys that I work with, you know, they don't live saved. You know, they just don't live saved. And man, you go play golf. We love to play golf, and you know, it would be getting turned up at 9 a.m. It didn't matter. Like whenever it started, I mean, like they were. Oh, but what is it here lately? Well, and I say for the past several golf tournaments, like they haven't drank at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's because of me, but I'm just saying like I told my boss, who is a friend of mine, I told him, I said, you know, my goal in life is to never drink anything again. That's just something I want to do. It's not it's not a like I didn't look it up in scripture and say, I just it's something that I've tasked myself that I never want to do again.
Yeah.
And it's not because of it's because Jesus is enough.
Yeah.
And I don't need those other things. While it might not do anything to me, I would never I'd never want to open that door.
Yeah.
Because it always starts subtle, right? You know,
Feeds
it's never
sin, it gets bigger
it's
and
never
better.
like boom, let's tie one on.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have a drink.
Yeah. Which are you in the same boat? Like your goal is never drinking again?
Oh yeah. When I first started, and kind of go back to your first question, when I first started not drinking, it was weird.
Yeah.
All family events, I was the party guy. Like for Thanksgiving, I brought a bottle of turkey, 101.
Yeah.
Like it was a joke. Landon is the alcohol drinker in the family. So going around family events, it was like people didn't know how to act. They're like, should I drink around you? Can I drink around you? And I was like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. If you can do it. I'm not gonna drink. And you could really tell the people that would care about you succeeding in this, because they would ask that question: can I drink around you, or does this bother you?
Yeah.
Then you go around some other people that don't care. They just crack one open. Hey, you want one? Or hey, hand them this bottle, and passing a bottle right over you, and it's just like, all right, you know I'm struggling with sobriety, and you guys are taking shots and doing this and doing that. But I told myself, to get to your second question, I was like, maybe when my daughter gets married, my daughter's 3 in 2 weeks, I might have a glass of champagne at her wedding. Now I never want to drink again.
Right.
The way that my life has changed in the last year and a half, I'm a year and 7 months sober. The way my life's changed, gotten a brand new relationship with God, brand new relationship with my wife, brand new relationship with my daughter. The first year of my daughter's life, I was still drinking, and I was physically there, but I wasn't mentally there.
Sure.
I missed the first year of her life.
Yeah.
And I will never miss another. If I have control the controllables, I'll never miss a second of her life. And if I pick up a bottle, I may miss the rest of her life. They say it's not the hard times that are the hardest. It's when you start doing really good. You make it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years sober. Oh, I'm doing great. I can have a drink now.
Yeah.
And that's when you spiral real bad.
Opens that door
Because
that you
you
talk about.
when it's bad, when you're sad, don't go to that alcohol. Don't go to it. You're sad. It's not what you need. But when you're doing great, it's like, oh, I've been doing so good. I can handle this. And then that's when you spiral. I'll never touch a sip of alcohol again in my life. It, like I said, when I first started, I was getting that closer relationship with God. So it's, I may in a year, I may do it. And now it's never. The way that my bond with God, my wife, my daughter, my family, it has strengthened. It wouldn't have been possible without God. It wouldn't have been possible without giving up alcohol.
Yeah. That's huge. And I like the fact that you're like sharing like the effects after you've quit. Because I had an interesting experience. So like I said, like I didn't really ever have like a problem with it. Like I was the kind of guy that was like, hey, I'm gonna go get a burger, and I'd have one beer like I for dinner, and I was okay with that. Like I wouldn't. It's not that I couldn't control myself. I couldn't stop, but had an evening where I've had maybe, I think, 3 beers over the span of like 6 hours. Like I wasn't feeling anything, nothing like that. I wasn't drinking to feel. Like I just was having an evening with some friends. And that night, like I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I'm like vomiting. I'm like throwing up. I felt like I got hit by a semi truck. And it was like a little like too real for me because I was like, look,
This shouldn't have
this
done
shouldn't
this to
have
me,
felt
yeah.
that way. And so like maybe I didn't touch anything for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I kind of felt like that was God that was telling me to do that. And I didn't test God, but I basically tested the conviction. I said, God, I'm gonna go to dinner tonight. I was like, I'm gonna go get some wings. I'm gonna have 1 beer. And I told myself, I told God, I was like, hey, if that was genuinely from you and you wanted me to stop drinking, I said, make me, I don't know why I said this, but I said, make me feel worse than I felt that night.
You having like the Gideon moment?
Dude, yeah, I was like, man, dude, so I kid you not, I had 1 Blue Moon and I had some wings. That's all I drank. I even took some precaution. I went to the gas station. I bought a Gatorade. I bought electrolyte water. I kid you not, dude, I'm like chugging all this stuff. Didn't feel a single thing. I go to bed. I woke up and it was like a steamroller rolled over me. I was way worse than the night I had those 3 beers. And I was like, all right, that's from God. And after that, and it was like the same week, we go to our young adults group that we meet every Tuesday. And we're talking about, in our small group at that time, loving God and the actions behind it. And so I'm sitting there and we're like 45 minutes in, and our young adults pastor the entire time is like looking at me to like respond to some of the questions, and like some of them just told me like, be quiet. I was like, okay, so like I'm not sharing anything in the group, and I had the Holy Spirit burning inside of me. He's like, I want you to share that God told you to stop drinking and everything like that. But he's like, but wait. I was like, okay. So this entire time, 45 minutes goes by, I'm not saying a single word. And it gets down to the very last topic, and I'm like, there wasn't really like a plug-in anywhere in that conversation for me to share that. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then I've heard the Holy Spirit is like, now. So I was like, okay. I was like, hey, y'all, I'm sitting here with 25 people. I'm like, I want to share this story. I was like, I know some of you guys know my past. I struggle with some things, but God told me to stop drinking. I shared the whole story that you guys had shared. And after that, I was like, okay, well, all right, what now, God? So I shared that. And our young adults pastor goes, hey, we're going to open it up for prayer requests. And this was, I know you guys know him. I've talked about it. He knows the story, so I'll say his name. But Scotty was sitting across the table. It's his first time to our young adults group. And he goes, I'd like a prayer request. Like I've been struggling with alcohol, and everything of that nature. And so that opened up the door to then us having conversations, to us now doing this men's group that he's now a part of, to today. He's on stage dedicating his children to Christianity. He's devoted his life to Christ. It's just the coolest thing. And today I'm sitting there, I got emotional, and God was like, hey, this is a part of the work that I'm doing, and you get to be a part of it. Nothing that I'm doing, but it's God working, and it was the coolest thing.
But and you're right, like Scotty, it's really cool to see him as well, because I knew him before, and you can see a different light in his eyes.
Yeah.
It is really neat to see that, but it's amazing what you hear about other people's testimonies and stuff like that, but how it relates to what we're going through and stuff like that. There was a time in my life where I said, and I know I've said this many times on other podcasts, but it was an encounter with God that changed everything. I was going to be a good Christian. I was going to take my family to church. I was going to do everything that I was supposed to do, and be who I felt that I needed to be. And Jesus changed everything. And never thought that I would be able to, and I think it's on the journey of all Christians who have failed in their past. In one way or the other is, God can never use me to for anything, much less. And I get to see a lot of the way that my life intersects with people that are struggling with that.
Yeah.
And you get to tell them there's hope.
Oh yeah.
And there's you're not sold, you're not stuck in this. You know what I mean? Like there's a way out.
Yeah.
And God, he does redeem you or whoever it is, with whatever you're dealing with. So it's been really neat for my life, the older that I get to to be able to intersect with these people, and it's just like you were talking about with Scotty, like
Yeah.
the experiences that you have able to really speak into people's lives, and they're
Yeah.
like, man, maybe I'm not lost.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm not, as broken as I thought. Because if you start digging into everybody's past, you start being like, okay, well, maybe I'm not that.
Well,
you know?
well, to that point, because that's what the enemy wants. You feel like I'm the only one going through
Sure.
this. I'm the only one experiencing this. I can't relate to anybody. That's the neatest thing about our testimonies. And I tell people all the time, like, the biggest thing you can share outside of sharing the gospel is your testimony.
Sure.
You know?
Well, I mean, the Bible says, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. But it's essential.
Going into kind of some of the topic, I was managing the UFITs here in Tallahassee. Met Pastor Jonathan at UFIT.
Yeah. Okay. I remember
He asked me to
seeing-
spot
yeah,
him
yeah,
on
yeah.
315 on incline.
Big
It's
man.
like, oh, okay. Like, yeah. He did it for reps.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy's strong. And then we got to talking. I just started getting sober. I was like 10 days sober.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I'm a pastor at Fresh Life. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come see you. I didn't go for months.
Sure.
But every single time he came in, I'd say, what's up? He'd be like, what's up, man? He wouldn't push me. Brought
Yeah.
me a Bible. Like 2 months into it. Hey, I want you to have this. So I'm at Academy Sports one time. He's like, hey, man, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Didn't push me at all. Started going. I went 1 or 2 times. Stopped going. Switched jobs. Now I'm managing Momentum Fitness. And I've seen him in there a few times. He's working out with my fitness manager. Hadn't really said anything to him. Just kind of like, hey, how are you doing? What's up? Well, he comes in. I saw his cross on his neck. And we're just sitting at the front. He was buying one of his $1,000 of protein drinks.
Wait, we're gonna pause real quick. I spent over $1,000 in protein shakes last year
Yeah.
at his gym.
Yep.
I didn't even know.
That's-
Because they have a little fridge, and every day you can scan something.
That's
and
a problem.
It doesn't
Yeah.
tell you how much they are. I'm over here thinking, oh, these are like $3 protein shakes. They're like $5.50, and they're like, Adam, you've paid 11 sheets of protein shakes.
over
And
$1,000
I was
in
like,
protein.
can we do the math real quick? Like, how much have I spent? They're like, this year you spent over $1,000 in protein shakes. I was
That's
like,
we're talking about alcohol. Maybe it's protein.
maybe
it's protein
shakes
shakes we need
is
to be
the
talking
bad-
about,
the
right?
bad habit. Anyway, sorry, not to derail, but
That's
yeah.
funny.
So you
No,
saw
you're
my
funny.
cross necklace. We started talking.
And we started talking, and I was just like, I don't even know how the conversation got up. He's like, yeah, man, you should come to church with me. I'm like, where'd he go? He's like, Fresh Life. I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
There's no, because I've gone once or twice. Never saw him there. And I was like, do you have a second? He's like, yeah. Pulled him into this is my first time really talking to him, pulled into my office. He shares a little bit of his testimony. I share a little bit of my testimony. And now we're at where we are now. We run a small group. We have people once a month on Saturdays
Yeah.
where people get to come and no alcohol involved, grill some food out, sit by a fire, throw the football, throw cornhole, talk about being a man, being a father, being a husband, being a Christian. And I mean, it's insane how small the world really is when I'm running a completely different gym and I'm talking to the pastor of Fresh Life Church and he's trying to get me to come in. And then I go to another gym and that's 10 days sober when I first started talking to him. I'm a year and 7 months sober now.
Let's go.
And just the bond and the relationship has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. I was telling him the other day, I used to be scared to talk about God in front of people.
Sure.
Now I'll scream it at it. I'll be at the front
right.
desk and
I feel like I'm like slacking over here.
I wear apparel. I wear the necklace. Our shirts. Do you have the Momentum shirt?
I do, yeah.
It's Momentum Fitness, and on the back it says Faith, Family, and Fitness.
Okay.
On the gym shirts.
Yeah.
I've ran into so many people just about talking about God, and sharing my story of being sober because for a while I was ashamed of my past. But when you do share your testimony, which I haven't fully shared in this, and we can get into that, I was a completely different person.
Sure.
At a point in time, I was a bad person. But recently, within the last 3 years, I wasn't a bad person. I was just so far from God that I wasn't a good person.
Yeah.
And that it's just crazy how I'm sitting here right now having this conversation with you guys when a year and 7 months ago, on a Sunday night, I'd be at a pool trashed.
Sure.
And I'd wake up and I'd go to work hungover and I wouldn't get anything done. And I would live this worldly life that we're living. And it's crazy. It's crazy sitting here and talking about this with you guys. And
Yeah.
it's exciting.
You know, you said something. You said that it was crazy, like how small of a world it is. when I hear you say that, I think it's so awesome how intentional God is. You know,
Yep.
like
Oh, yeah.
in your life, to have Jonathan at a completely different gym, to like having Adam come by it isn't happenstance. You know, that's the intentionality of God to get a hold of you, because, you know, while iron sharpens iron, and you know, with you and you know each other, you also, you know, God's got a calling on your life. You know, He's very intentional, and one thing that I heard later was, you know, God's calling doesn't change on your life. Your circumstances might change, but His calling doesn't. If His calling is going to be the same whether you're 25 or you're 80, it's just when you get your mind right.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, good thing about it is none of us are good. You know, we're all broken people, but you know, through grace and through faith, you know, God allows us and uses us to reach others, and now you are being able to do that. I mean, that's really, really cool.
And I'm just like super proud of you, bro. Because like I think about like when I first started going to the gym, you know, I worked out at Momentum. Like we crossed paths, and then we started having our conversations. And at first, like, not to share this too publicly, but like you were like, well, can we talk over here? I don't want other people to kind of hear, like, you know, the gym staff. Like, I don't know if I want them to hear about this. And now, like, it's on your shirts. Like at Easter, we were doing the 600 yards, pulling 300 pounds, and we had guys in the gym that were doing that too, walking the walk that Jesus walked when he was carrying the
We
cross.
took a sled and put 300 pounds on the sled, pulled it 600 meters.
Yeah, you know, I seen something on Instagram about that.
Roughly the distance and weight that Jesus carried
That he
across.
carried. Yeah, that's
in the
cool.
front of my gym.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
Yeah, there was when I showed up, there was probably 9 or 10 guys that were kind of gearing up to do it, and not all of them were Christians. But it's being able to share that story. I've just personally seen you go from like, hey, I don't know if I really want to talk about this in front of people to then openly sharing about it. Like, it's the coolest thing, man. Like I said, I'm super proud of you, dude.
Yeah, and that's a year into it. Like I said, it's a year. The last 6 months, the last 7 months have been different than the whole last first year of me being sober. But it all stemmed from God telling me, you need to be sober now. You're going to lose your wife. You're going to lose your daughter if you do not get sober. And that's why this whole talk of alcohol a sin? For me, 100% it is. I would not have my wife. I would not have my daughter if I would have stayed on.
Well,
that same
alcohol
path.
causes you to sin.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I mean, I'm the same way. You know, I completely understand that.
1,000%.
But it's really cool, man, to see you living for the Lord now. You know, and a part of my testimony is, you know, you talk about a year and 7 months. I was a few years in when I had an encounter with God. I know that I haven't been able to share my story with you, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it was a moment where I was in my kitchen. It was the middle of the night. I was on my knees and said, God, I can't do this anymore. Like, I tried to be the good husband, the good father, the good Christian, you know, doing what I was supposed to do, but it was task oriented. It wasn't really focusing on who Jesus called me to be, and taking that ownership of, like, I'm saved by grace. You know what I mean? To live for Jesus, that my sin it is not held against me. There's no record of that against me, and that I can live freely for Jesus. And I had a moment where I just said, God, I can't do this anymore. And in that moment, He met me, and it changed my life. You know, now I'm able to be a pastor. You know, I'm able to pour into people at church and just around me, you know, in everyday life, and make friends. You know, Adam and I have talked about this many times. You know, like, it's in a side by side comparison. Like, Adam and I shouldn't be friends necessarily, because I mean, you know, I'm 39, Adam's 25. It's just word. What'd you say?
It's 26.
Yeah, 26. Oh, my bad.
It don't matter.
Yeah. You know, it's where we're at in life shouldn't line up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he and I, you know, were talking one day, and it was just like, man, like, I think that there's something here with the podcast, and just being able to really minister to folks. And, you know, even with that, I remember the day that you gave your life to the Lord. Like that, it's almost like that old jacket, that old smelly jacket that you wore around for a long time, you finally just tried to get rid of it. Like, it's almost like I seen you throw it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that, it was all right. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess I was going to church. I was still living such a worldly life. It was crazy because, so my little sister just got engaged yesterday, and her
congrats.
now fiance was the one that shared his
give you
testimony
that
with
video?
me. And it was crazy. Like, I told this on the podcast too before, but like, there was a video by Francis Chan that I was watching about the rope methodology.
Yeah.
Felt God's presence, like his hand on my shoulder, and being like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, how are you, the way you're living right now, like you and I are in two separate directions. And I was like, man, I don't want to spend eternity in hell, paying for the sins when Jesus died on the cross for that already. But I just didn't know God. And then when I started pursuing a relationship with him, it is funny because like we talked around, how Jesus changes the desires of your heart. Like I was trying to go to church, trying to have a relationship. And then once I actually started diving in to actually pursue a relationship with God, he just started cleaning up my life. And, the things that I used to fill those voids with, right? Obviously for some it's alcohol, for me it was other things, but like that void gets filled by Jesus and that relationship you have with him. And yeah, dude, I remember the day like that I was truly genuinely saved. And it was like shackles just fell off.
Right.
I had scales on my eyes that just fell out. And I'll talk to people about things today and that I had struggled with, and they see no wrong in it because it's such a worldly circumstance, and they think like, oh well, that's how
normal.
the world lives. It's normal, and right, you almost feel weird to be a Christian in today's society. But like, I don't know, I'm not ashamed by it. Like, I'll go and preach it to the choir, like
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect time. You shared a little bit of yours, and I'll share somewhat
Sure.
of my testimony.
Yeah.
Growing up, living in Crawfordville, I'm from Crawfordville. Moved to Atlanta sophomore year of high school. Lived with my dad and his husband, and had a decent life. Played football, was into sports. Started hanging out with the wrong crowd. Started doing and selling drugs.
Yeah.
A lot of them went down the wrong path, like the way wrong path. Didn't bring me closer to God.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I met she was my girlfriend at the time. She's my wife now. I was living with two buddies, partying all the time, doing drugs, drinking. That kind of fell off. Moved in with my wife, girlfriend, not
Yeah, I
wife
guess.
yet.
No, I
Moved in
guess.
with my wife now, girlfriend then, in a roach-infested one-bedroom apartment in the projects of Atlanta, like the projects. Pizza delivery would not deliver to our address because they're like, nope, we're not coming there. Drinking every single night. Got to a point, I had a Ruger 380, went to the bathroom, put it in my head, pulled the trigger. Jammed. Guns never jammed on me, ever. Jammed. I was like, all right, called my stepdad. He came, took the gun away from me. My girlfriend at the time, they were like, all right, we have to do something. Didn't bring me closer to God. Tried to end my life. It didn't bring me closer to God. Moved to Florida, back to Tallahassee, because my doctor was like, life or death situation, you have to move back. My girlfriend at the time, I told her, I was like, hey, I'm moving in 2 weeks. You're coming with me or you can stay here. Thankfully, she decided to come with me. Moved down here, still partying, still drinking. And at this point in time, I'm not doing coke anymore. I'm not doing hardcore drugs. I'm just drinking a lot. Best friend gets in a car accident, coma for 10 days, TBI. He was out Fort Hood, Killeen, Texas, and I thought he was dead. Went down a rough path. He didn't die. It was good, but TBI really messed him up. Was still in the military trying to get fully medically discharged. About a year or so later, died of a drug overdose, fentanyl. That ruined me. We quit drugs together. He went military. I met my wife. We kind of were doing better. I was still drinking all the time, but we were doing better.
Sure.
He met a wrong person and went down the wrong path and overdose on fentanyl. And that just set me down a spiral. Best friend, like we lived together for years, did everything together. Excessively drinking, kind of slowed down, got married, doing good. And I'd quit 100 times. I would quit for a week, 2 weeks. And I'd always find myself back. Had a daughter. Quit. Found myself back. One instance, it was a buddy's birthday. It was a Sunday, a year and 7 months ago. A little longer than that now. And we went to the hub at Feather Oaks. and it's just beer. So there's no liquor. I spent over $100 in just beer. Got wasted. Went home. Drank more. Went to a buddy's house for a party. Came back home. My daughter was staying with my mom while we went out to this thing for my buddy's birthday. Got blackout drunk. Don't remember anything. My wife went to Crawfordville to pick my daughter up. Came back home. I woke up 3, 4 a.m. My daughter's in bed in her crib. My wife's asleep. I just looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing? The next morning, called AA, called a couple places, like, how do I check myself into rehab? And I just sat there and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. Still, there wasn't like a boom. But I knew that if I did not quit right then and there, I was going to lose my wife and I was going to lose my daughter. After all this, trying to kill myself, best friend passing away, like all of these things, and nothing put me there. I was like, I have to quit. I don't know how. I was like, I called AA just in case. I was like, I need to know how to check myself in if I need to. And then slowly and surely, it didn't happen like you guys, but slowly and surely, God just kept creeping his way in.
Sure.
With Jonathan, with you, with my best friend Wade. People just, it's crazy how it works, because there's no way 10 days sober meeting Jonathan, almost a year sober meeting him at the same, like you said, God works in mysterious ways. And there never was this like grand, like that day was the day that God was telling me, you have to, or your family is ruined. But every single day, it's a little bit closer to God.
Yeah. Well, and
it's awesome.
You know, there's not I don't want there to be like a misconception of this grandiose, just, you know, like God came down in his shining light in my kitchen and stuff like that. You know, I think it's a moment where you decide.
Yeah.
And he meets you there. And, you know, that's what you did. I mean, there's not, there are dramatic changes, but, you know, you made a couple statements that really reminded me of things. You know, you talked about the attempt on your life, and that didn't bring you closer to the Lord. You know, I've seen the miracles of the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen the blind see, I've seen the cripple walk, I've seen the deaf hear. I was healed of epilepsy when I was 14 years old through prayer. You know, like I've seen these things. You would think that those moments would give you the unshakable faith of I will never, brother. That was young in my childhood. That was just the beginning.
Yeah.
That didn't bring me any closer. And, you know, you think about it in the Bible, like
Exodus.
like, well, just think about Jesus. You know, like like he was doing this stuff in person.
They witnessed
you know, and they still, these people that said, you know, the people that welcomed Jesus in as he rode the donkey into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, right? The people that welcomed him in, crying out that he was the Messiah, just a few days later were the same ones yelling, "Crucify him." You know, so, you know, our circumstances and things like that, like having events happen don't necessarily change us. You talk about you looked in the mirror. I remember there was a moment in my life with my father. He was an alcoholic, you know, just not going to sign him up for Dad of the Year. You know, I can say now that he is serving Jesus, which is, you know, fantastic. But I remember saying, I'll never be like him. I'll never be like him. I'll never be like him. And then in one moment, I remember looking in the mirror and realizing I was the worst version of him. And it's like, ugh. You know what I mean? Like, but I think, you know, in those moments are moments that you decide to follow God. Like, it has to be intentional, because he's so intentional with us.
Yeah.
Right. And the calling that he has on our life, we have to be intentionally serving him.
Yeah. He pursued us first.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think that we've been disenfranchised in a lot of situations where it's like, oh, you give your life to the Lord, and, you know, everything just changes, and, you know, like he's going to meet you where you're at, and you're going to
rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah. Your life's going to be changed. And the simple fact is that's not true.
Yeah.
He does meet us where we're at, and he does equip us and give us the things that we need to serve him and follow him.
Yeah.
However, it's a conscious decision and an intentional decision to serve him. Once we do so, you know, we draw close, you know, draw near to him,
Yeah.
and he will draw near to you. That's very true.
Yeah.
And the more we seek and go after the Lord, I've talked about this many times. My prayer time in the mornings is one of the most important times
Yep.
in my life, period. Like moments of my life, that's one of the most important. And it's early morning, it's a prayer. That's just my time. That's the time that I can do it.
Yep.
And I'm seek after the Lord, and I pray and I read His Word. But my intention in that moment is to have a meeting with the King.
Yeah.
I wake up early, out of sleep, to have a meeting with Jesus and say, Lord, I want you to. I'm here to meet with you. Now, as I do that, that relationship
Yeah.
is formed. The Holy Spirit moves in you, and you start to change. The scales, like you were talking about, start to fall off. Like you're not so rugged
Yeah.
anymore. You know what I mean? And He starts to refine you. There will never be a day in my life where that is over.
I love that.
You know what I mean? Like
Foundation.
you're always being refined, and the trials and things that you've gone through. What the enemy meant for evil, God can turn to good. Our lives are testaments of that, and so are many of yours. There's a lot of people with situations and things that you've been through that you feel nobody has. I know we're kind of talking about alcohol, but this goes into anything that where you these things that you've been through and that nobody knows about and that nobody else can understand. That's all a lie. God is calling you to righteousness. Doesn't mean you're not going to fail. Doesn't mean you're not going to slip up. But there has to be a decision made.
Yeah.
That I'm going to follow the Lord.
Yep.
I think that's really important. I was talking to my brother the other day, a really long conversation with my brother. I'm not going to go into the whole topic, but I was explaining to him, I was like, God's completely changed my life. And I was like, that was the first part of the conversation. A lot was said, and then I explained something that's not going so great in my life right now. And it's not.
Right.
And it's something I'm going to have to figure out, and it's going to be hard to figure out, especially my wife's 5 months pregnant.
I didn't know that. Congratulations.
And thank you. And trying to navigate through this. And he said, and I won't forget it, he's like, well, so if God's changed your life so much, why did this happen? And then I smiled. I was like, because He's testing me. Yeah. This is where you show the faith. And like you were saying, it's not rainbows and butterflies. It doesn't just, oh, you're following God now, everything's going to be great for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But the way you react and the way that you let other people see you react, that's what being a Christian is. That's what having that relationship with God is. I could just say, oh, why me?
Yeah.
Why me? This, that, and the other. And then or I could be like, you know what? I'm going to do everything that I need to do. I'm going to have that conversation with God every single day. Lord, I'm going to do my part. Help me.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Every single day. And I'm not going to lose faith. And that really resonated with me because old Landon would have been like, oh, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Old Landon would be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go to the bar and get drunk.
Yeah.
Instead of actually trying to figure out the circumstance. And my wife during this time she's like, well, we're about to have a baby. What are we going to do? And being able to conversate and during our last small group, you guys helped a lot, and go back to her and talk with her. She's like, I think she's better off now than she was before this actually happened.
Sure.
Yep.
She's happier.
Yeah.
My daughter's happier. She's healthier, which means my son's going to be born healthier because she's not stressed out so much.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, we haven't figured it out yet, but we know God's going to figure it out.
Sure.
And that to me is like, I'm being tested. But I promise you, it's not going to break me. It's actually going to bring me closer to God because now I'm going to talk to Him more. And I do the same thing. I try. I don't always. I try.
Right. Yeah.
To get up at 5 a.m. and either go for a run or go for a bike ride. But before I go for that run or that bike ride, I either listen to a prayer or I pray myself or I read my Bible. And then I get on and I'll do 5 or so miles and then I'll come back in and I'll make my supplements and get ready for my day because that's my time. That's my time with the Lord. That's my time with myself because once my daughter's awake and my wife's awake, I got to do that. Then I have to go manage a gym for the rest of the day. So that is a very important time. Those times are a lot longer now because I know that I'm going through what I'm going through. And that's actually bringing me closer to God. And when I'm on my way to work, that music goes down sometimes and I have another conversation with God. Yeah. When I'm in the shower at night, I have another conversation with God because I I need to have those conversations to reassure myself. That's just bringing me closer to God. And it's like a light in the darkness. It's like, I know I'm going through this, but I know that God's going to get me through it. I don't know how. I don't know when. Soon, hopefully. But I don't know when. But I know it's going to happen. And that just, it's another reassurance. And it's like, all right, this is where my faith comes in.
Yeah.
This is where I react to this the best way I can and continue to go on about my life.
And that's where you have to have that perceptive of like I'm gonna lean in on my faith. Like this is it because I lean back to the comment because people I've heard in the past, and I was guilty of saying like, oh, God won't give you more than you can handle. He will absolutely give you more than you can handle because he wants you to rely and lean on him and lean on your faith. And so obviously we talked about the circumstance and everything, but like to your point, like you all seemed happier, you know. I've said like since we've had that conversation, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But and just kind of like round things out, because I obviously want to kind of wrap this up on alcohol specifically, but obviously with the past, like, is there anything that you guys would say to somebody who's struggling with that today that might still be stumbling in that from a day-to-day perspective?
Two things. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone else, because as much as the world puts a persona on how hard you have to be as a man, you can't open up about your emotions. That's a false statement.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pretty hardcore men that will talk to you about that, especially if that's going to get you out of a situation that could really ruin you and get you closer to God. And the second thing is, and this is what I said in one of our meetings, don't worry about next year. Don't worry about next month. Don't worry about tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You got to worry about today. Get through today. And then when tomorrow comes, then we worry about tomorrow. But we got our problems today we have to handle. Mm-hmm. You need to finalize today and just get through today. Take it one day at a time, one step at a time, 1 hour at a time if you have to. Mm-hmm. And stop worrying about, oh, well, what happens or I have a trip coming up. How am I going to have fun on this trip without alcohol? Don't worry about that trip. Figure out today. That trip's a week from now.
Yep.
Figure that out now. Worry about today now. And then when that trip comes, that'll be now. You can handle that then, but we're going to work on today.
Look at the now, not the future.
Yep.
Deal with it today.
That's my biggest.
Lean on them daily.
And then lean on your friends. You show me.
And just who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, show me your
that's
friends.
the biggest thing. I had people I had to cut out of my life.
Show me your friends. I'll show you your future.
It's a very true statement. I say that all the time. That's very true.
Yeah. Anything else from you, Trent?
You want my 2 cents on it?
Yeah.
I think you have to decide.
Mm-hmm.
You have to decide that you're done. And you have to move towards that. Also, you have to set up, accountability and boundaries for yourself. Landon pretty much, he covered, great points of, your friends and Christ, minded people who can help you through these situations and are going to give you hard advice sometimes out of love. That's, I'm sure there's some people that think that I'm way too good at that. But, if I love you enough to tell you the truth.
Amen.
And I can do that to you without, cutting you deep or I'm here for you. So I think you have to decide.
Yeah.
You have to decide, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it's one foot in front of the other. It's one step at a time, and I think that we get this misconception of, God, I need you to help me and take it all away.
Yeah.
That's so easy, because if God takes it all away from you, the appreciation that you're going to have for what God did for you, you're going to go right back when things get tough. You know what I mean? So it's a building a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. And
then allowing, we've talked about this on the podcast before, and allow him to change the desires of your heart. Mm-hmm. Instead of it becoming alcohol that you desire to running into the arms of the Father and saying, Lord, even in your desperation, it's a fallen world. Why do bad things happen to good people? That's the first thing that, an atheist mindset would say.
Yeah.
Well, we're a fallen world, a sinful nature. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's why. It's not because of God. It's because of us. And, allow God to change the desires of your heart so that as you pursue him, you pursue what you're turning to.
Yeah.
to make you feel better. And then, you know,
That's awesome. And we're going to have to do a whole podcast on that specifically because I think that's a great topic to run through.
what's that?
Why do bad things happen to good
Oh,
people?
right. Yeah,
And we,
yeah.
all right, so that's a whole segment we're going to do. But thanks for tuning in, y'all. If there's another topic that you would like to hear us discuss, please feel free to drop it down in the comment section like always, and we'll definitely be able to kind of run some podcasts based off of y'all's suggestions. But again, I'm Adam.
I'm Trent.
I'll let you say it. And awesome. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Make sure you like, subscribe, and share.
That's right.
Get it out.
And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.